The meteor struck Jack's cargo ship without warning. One moment he was plotting a standard course through the DR-413 system, and the next his ship spun wildly as alarms screamed through the cabin. Through the viewport, he watched chunks of his vessel scatter into the void, along with the precious medical supplies he'd been transporting. Mayday, Mayday. This is Earth cargo ship Delta 7, experiencing critical damage. Jack fought with the controls as another impact rocked his ship. His radio crackled with static, then went dead. He wasn't alone in the disaster. A sleek diplomatic vessel from the Crest Empire had also been caught in the meteor storm. Its pilot, Rep, struggled with failing systems as their ship careened toward the toxic planet below. Rep's crystalline skin flickered with distress patterns as they tried to stabilize their descent. Both ships were doomed. Jack reached for the escape pod controls just as his vessel started breaking apart. The last thing he saw before his pod ejected was the Crest ship exploding in a brilliant flash of light. The descent was brutal. Jack's pod tumbled through the atmosphere, heat shields barely holding against the entry burn. The pod's computer chimed warnings about the planet's hostile environment. Acidic atmosphere, crystalline storms, and unknown biological threats. Come on, Jack muttered, wrestling with the landing thrusters. The ground rushed up, a hellish landscape of twisted purple vegetation and jagged rock formations. The pod slammed down hard, bouncing twice before skidding to a stop. Jack lay still for a moment, checking himself for injuries. Nothing broken, but his ribs ached from the impact. The pod's sensors showed the outside air was deadly toxic. He'd need his emergency suit to survive. As he suited up, his emergency radio picked up a weak signal. Any survivors, diplomatic vessel, require assistance. The voice was clearly non-human, using the standard translation protocols. Jack keyed his radio. This is Jack from Earth Cargo. I read you. Are you from the Crest ship? Affirmative. The alien's voice was strained. I am Rep, diplomatic courier. My pod is damaged. Life support failing. Cannot move. Jack checked his pod's navigation system. Rep's signal was coming from about 5 kilometers away, across the dangerous terrain. Most humans would think twice about helping a Crest. Their empire was known for viewing humans as primitive and dangerous. But Jack wasn't about to let anyone die alone on this rock. Hold on, Rep, I'm coming to help. Jack grabbed his emergency pack and checked his suit seals one final time. Keep broadcasting. I'll follow your signal. No, Rep replied. Too dangerous. Planet hostile. Stay where you are. Sorry, but that's not how humans do things. Jack activated the pod's airlock. We're both stuck here, and we'll have better odds of survival together. As Jack stepped onto the alien surface, the purple vegetation seemed to react to his presence, writhing slowly. In the distance, crystalline formations caught the light of the system's star, creating eerie rainbow patterns in the toxic air. Something howled in the distance, something big. Jack checked his suit's compass and Rep's signal direction. Hang in there, Rep, help is on the way. He began walking, each step careful on the treacherous ground. Neither of them might survive this planet, but he'd die trying to help rather than hide safely in his pod. That's what humanity was about. The toxic jungle grew denser as Jack pushed forward. His suit's filters worked overtime processing the acidic air, and each step required careful placement to avoid the razor-sharp crystal formations jutting from the ground. Through his radio, Rep's breathing grew more labored. Human, my pod's oxygen recyclers are failing. You must turn back. This sector shows increasing crystalline storm activity. I've got about 2 kilometers to go, Jack replied, ducking under a low-hanging branch that seemed to reach for him. Just keep talking. Tell me about your home. You were not trained for this environment, Rep insisted, their translator struggling to convey their agitation. My species studied DR-413 for years. The storms here, they shred even our toughest equipment. They will tear your suit apart. A distant rumbling made Jack pause. Looking up, he saw dark clouds forming, glinting with metallic shards. The storm was approaching faster than he'd expected. He needed shelter, fast. Jack spotted a cave entrance beneath a twisted rock formation. "Rep, going to lose radio contact for a bit. Taking shelter." "The caves." Rep's voice crackled with alarm. "No, they are." Static cut off the rest as Jack ducked inside. The cave walls sparkled with bioluminescent fungi, providing enough light to see. He wasn't alone. Red eyes gleamed in the darkness. 3 creatures emerged, silicon-based predators with crystalline claws and teeth. They moved with terrible grace, circling Jack as he backed away. His hand found a loose crystal formation on the wall. Jack waited until the first creature lunged, then swung the makeshift weapon. It connected with a satisfying crack, but the other 2 were already moving. Jack fought desperately, using his suit's enhanced strength to keep the creatures at bay. One claw scraped his helmet, leaving deep gouges. If they breached his suit, a high-pitched sonic burst suddenly filled the cave. The creatures howled and retreated, their crystalline bodies vibrating painfully. In the cave entrance stood Rep, holding some kind of sonic device. The alien's appearance startled Jack. Rep stood taller than a human, with translucent crystalline skin that shifted colors with their emotions. Currently, it pulsed with warning reds and oranges. "You saved my life," Jack said, catching his breath. "And you risked yours trying to reach me," Rep replied. Their color shifted to cooler blues. Perhaps our species' assessment of humans requires revision." The storm raged outside, forcing them to wait it out together. Rep explained how they'd managed to repair their suits' mobility systems, then tracked Jack's signal. They shared emergency rations, Rep consuming mineral supplements while Jack ate his protein bars. "Why did you come for me?" Rep asked finally. "Our empires barely maintained diplomatic relations. Many humans would have left me to die." Jack shrugged. "Because it was right. Because no one should die alone on a planet like this. Sometimes it's that simple." Rep's crystalline surface rippled with thoughtful patterns. Perhaps they realized there was more to learn about humans than their training had suggested. They would need each other to survive this world, and that meant setting aside old prejudices. The storm began to fade, and with it, the ancient barriers between their species started to crumble too. The ancient ruins rose from the toxic jungle like the skeleton of a fallen giant. Jack and Rep stood before massive doors covered in unknown symbols, their suits' sensors scanning for dangers. After 2 days of traveling through the hostile terrain, both needed a safe haven to rest and repair their damaged equipment. "These markings," Rep said, their crystalline form shifting to scholarly blues and greens, "they match no known species in our database. This structure predates both our civilizations." Jack ran his gloved hand along the wall. "But can we get inside? My suit's oxygen recycler won't last another day out here." Rep touched the control panel, their crystalline fingers interfacing with the ancient technology. Nothing happened. Jack studied the mechanism, noticing how similar it was to old hydraulic systems he'd worked with. "Look here," he pointed. "The power's dead, but these are mechanical locks. If we can reroute power from our suits." Working together, they managed to jury-rig a connection. The massive doors groaned open, revealing a vast chamber within. Their lights showed clean lines and smooth surfaces, untouched by the jungle's corruption. "The air," Rep noted, checking their sensors. "It's different in here, filtered somehow." Jack checked his own readings. Still toxic, but less concentrated. The environmental systems must still be running somewhere. He pointed to faint lights flickering in distant corridors. "Think we can get them working again?" Rep's colors swirled with uncertainty. "This technology, it's beyond even my people's understanding." "Maybe," Jack grinned behind his faceplate. "But we don't need to understand it all, just enough to survive." They explored deeper, finding rooms filled with strange machinery. Jack's practical engineering experience complemented Rep's advanced scientific knowledge. Together, they began piecing together how the ancient systems worked. "Here," Jack called out, examining a large console. "This looks like life support controls. The symbols match the ones you translated outside." Rep interfaced with the system while Jack rerouted power connections. Suddenly, the chamber hummed to life. Air scrubbers activated, and emergency lighting bathed everything in a soft blue glow. "It's working." Rep's surface rippled with excited colors. "The toxicity levels are dropping rapidly." But their celebration was cut short by a deep rumbling. The temperature began to plummet as night fell outside. Strange howls echoed through the corridors, different from the crystal beasts they'd encountered before. "We're not alone here," Jack said quietly, checking his makeshift weapons. Rep's colors darkened with concern. "No, and the night brings worse dangers than the day. We should seal off this section. Fortify it." Working quickly, they secured their position. As darkness fell completely, bioluminescent creatures began prowling the ruins' outer sections. Jack and Rep huddled in their makeshift shelter, watching shadows move past barricaded doorways. "Tell me about Earth," Rep asked suddenly, their voice soft through the translator. "About how humans live." Jack smiled, grateful for the distraction. As he shared stories of his home, the horrors outside seemed less threatening. They were no longer just survivors. They were becoming friends. The night would be long, but they would face it together. Rep's collapse came without warning. One moment they were helping Jack repair the ruins' ventilation system. The next, their crystalline form dulled to a sickly gray as they crumpled to the floor. "Rep," Jack rushed to his friend's side. The alien surface was burning hot, their usual color patterns replaced by erratic pulses of dark red and purple. "What's happening? Talk to me." "Local microorganisms," Rep managed through labored breaths. "Our studies showed they could be harmful to my species. Thought the suit would protect." Jack's mind raced. The ruins' medical bay they'd discovered earlier had strange crystal formations that resembled those in Rep's emergency medical kit. But reaching it meant crossing through unsecured sections of the ruins, where nighttime predators still lurked. "Hold on," Jack said, checking his weapon charge. "I know where to find help." Rep's weak voice stopped him. "Too dangerous. Night hunters. You saved me from those cave beasts," Jack replied, already moving. "This is what friends do." The dark corridors echoed with alien sounds as Jack moved carefully through them. His helmet lights caught glimpses of movement. Shadowy forms scuttling away, luminescent eyes watching from dark corners. The medical bay was 3 levels down. A screech from above was his only warning. A creature like a cross between a bat and a crystal spider dropped from the ceiling. Jack rolled, firing his makeshift energy weapon. The blast caught the creature's wing, shattering it. But 2 more appeared behind it. Jack ran, the creatures in pursuit. He slid under a half-closed door, slamming the emergency seal just as razor-sharp claws scraped against it. The medical bay lay just ahead. The crystal formations glowed softly as he gathered them, carefully following the patterns he'd seen in Rep's medical kit. Each one had to be perfect. A wrong choice could make things worse. The return trip was even more dangerous, wounded creatures calling others to hunt him. Jack's suit was scraped and dented by the time he made it back to their shelter. Rep's condition had worsened, their surface almost completely gray. Jack crushed the crystals according to Rep's weak instructions, creating a solution that Rep could absorb through their exterior membrane. Hours passed. Jack watched anxiously as color slowly returned to Rep's form, spreading from dull gray to healthy blue tones. "You risked everything," Rep said finally, their voice stronger. "For an alien you barely know." "No," Jack corrected. "For a friend I'm getting to know pretty well." Rep's surface rippled with new patterns, ones Jack had never seen before. "My people teach that humans are primitive, driven by base instincts. We were wrong. Your adaptability, your willingness to help others despite danger, these are not signs of a primitive species." Maybe we both had some things to learn. Jack smiled. Now rest. Tomorrow we need to figure out why the atmosphere keeps getting more toxic. The long-range scanner Rep repaired brought both hope and dread. It showed a rescue beacon, still active, roughly 200 kilometers away. But between them and salvation lay the glass desert, a vast expanse of razor-sharp crystal formations that had claimed countless lives. The desert crossing is suicide, Rep said, their colors shifting to worried amber. The crystal storms there are constant. No protection lasts long enough. Jack studied the wreckage they'd salvaged from their pods. Then we build better protection. Look, we can use the pod's outer hull plates as shields. Working together, they fashioned crude but effective armor. Jack's knowledge of cargo ship repairs helped them layer the materials properly, while Rep's understanding of crystal formations let them angle the plates to deflect the worst damage. As they prepared to leave their shelter, Jack looked back at the ruins that had protected them. Ready? Rep's colors swirled with determination. Ready. Though I never imagined I'd trust my life to human engineering. The first steps into the glass desert showed them why it deserved its deadly reputation. Crystal spires rose like frozen waves, their edges sharp enough to slice through standard armor. The wind carried stinging shards that pinged off their makeshift shields. They walked single file, Jack leading with the larger shield while Rep watched their backs. The first crystal storm hit without warning, a horizontal blast of razor-sharp fragments that forced them to huddle behind their shields. We need to find cover, Rep shouted over the howling wind. There, that rock formation. They barely made it to shelter before the storm intensified. As they waited it out, they spotted movement in the crystal fields, massive serpentine creatures that swam through the glass like water. Glass swimmers, Rep whispered, highly territorial. One creature noticed them, its crystalline body reflecting light in hypnotic patterns as it approached. Jack raised his weapon, but Rep held him back. Wait, Rep said, stepping forward. Their diplomatic training kicked in as they began making specific color patterns with their crystalline skin. The creature paused, then responded with similar light patterns. They're intelligent, Jack realized, watching the exchange. Rep nodded. They're offering to guide us through their territory, if we respect their boundaries. With the glass swimmers' help, they made better progress through the desert. The creatures knew safe paths between the storms, leading them through the worst of the terrain. As they reached the desert's edge, their guides departed with a final display of lights. Jack and Rep watched them disappear into the crystal sea. We're halfway there, Jack said, checking their map. The beacon's signal is stronger. Rep's colors showed both exhaustion and pride. We've survived what most thought impossible. Perhaps our peoples have more to learn from each other than we realized. The rescue beacon beckoned in the distance, but the challenges ahead would test their newfound understanding even further. The automated research station stood like a metallic oasis in the toxic wasteland. After 15 grueling days of travel, Jack and Rep finally reached the source of the rescue beacon. Their relief quickly turned to dread when they discovered what waited inside. One pod, Jack said quietly, examining the station's single escape vessel, and it's designed for crest physiology. Rep's colors shifted through various shades of distress. No, there must be another way. Perhaps we could modify. Rep Jack's voice was gentle but firm. The pod's life support is specifically calibrated for your species. Any modifications might make it unusable for either of us. The station's computer confirmed Jack's assessment. The research pod was meant for emergency evacuation of crest personnel only. Its systems would reject any attempt to support human life. Then I will stay as well, Rep declared, their surface flashing with stubborn determination. We survive together or not at all. Jack shook his head. Don't be foolish. Your people needs you. That diplomatic data you're carrying could prevent wars, save lives. He started working on the pod's launch sequence. I'll be fine here until another rescue comes. Rep grabbed Jack's arm. The atmospheric toxicity is increasing exponentially. The station's readings show no human could survive more than a few days, even with protection. Their colors darkened to deep blues of sorrow. You would die alone. Better one than both, Jack smiled behind his helmet. Sometimes the right choice is the hard one. No. Rep's colors suddenly blazed with inspiration. The right choice is the one we haven't thought of yet. You taught me that humans find paths where others see only walls. They moved to the pod's control panel. Help me. We have 6 hours before the next orbital window. Let us be innovative. Jack stared at his friend, seeing the same determination that had kept them both alive through crystal storms and hostile terrain. Together, they had already achieved the impossible several times. All right, he said, pulling out his tools. Let's see what human ingenuity and Crest technology can do together. They worked frantically, combining their knowledge in ways neither civilization had attempted before. The station's ancient databanks held secrets that might make their desperate plan possible if they could solve the puzzle in time. Outside, the toxic atmosphere grew ever deadlier. But inside, two beings from vastly different worlds raced against time, refusing to abandon each other or their shared humanity. The orbital window approached as they made their final modifications. Everything hinged on whether their unique collaboration could overcome the harsh laws of physics and biology. Either they would both survive, or neither would. There was no other choice they were willing to make. This is Crest High Command to Research Pod Delta. Rep, you are ordered to launch immediately. Leave the human behind. The harsh command crackled through the station's communication system. Rep's colors flickered with defiance as they continued working on the modified escape pod. With respect, Command, I refuse, Rep replied. The human Jack has proved that our assumptions about their species were wrong. I will not abandon him. Jack worked faster, connecting the last circuits they'd rebuilt using technology discovered in the ancient ruins. Their modification combined human emergency survival systems with Crest life support in ways neither civilization had imagined possible. This is a direct order. Command's voice grew stern. Diplomatic relations with the humans are delicate. We cannot risk. Risk what? Rep interrupted. Risk learning that humans are capable of greatness, that they would die to save someone they once considered an enemy. Their colors pulsed with passionate blues and golds. I have seen humanity's true nature. It is not what we thought. The pod systems hummed as their modifications came online. Jack checked the readings, holding his breath. If they'd calculated wrong, if the ancient technology didn't work as they hoped. Green lights flashed across the console. It's working, he whispered. The hybrid life support is stable. Rep's surface rippled with joy. Command, I am launching with the human. Our survival here has shown that cooperation between our species is not just possible. It is essential. You risk everything, Command warned. Your career, your status. No, Rep replied. I risk nothing compared to what this human risked for me. That is the lesson I learned on this planet. That is what humanity taught me. The launch countdown began. Jack and Rep strapped themselves into the modified pod, their survival now dependent on each other's technology and trust. Ready? Jack asked, his hand hovering over the launch control. Rep's colors showed calm determination. Ready, my friend. The pod burst free from the station, just as the planet's atmosphere reached lethal toxicity levels. Their hybrid systems performed perfectly, keeping both passengers alive as they reached orbit. As rescue ships approached, both human and Crest, Jack turned to his friend. Think this will change anything between our peoples? Rep's surface shimmered with hopeful colors. It already has. Our story will show both species what is possible when we hold on to our humanity, no matter what form it takes. The pod's cabin filled with the light of two suns, one setting on the deadly planet below, another rising on a new era of understanding between their civilizations. Humanity had proved itself not through force or technology, but through compassion, innovation, and unwavering friendship. and in doing so, had taught an alien race that humanity wasn't just a human trait. It was a universal one worth holding on to.